What makes a MMO controversial? Over the years, there's been many questionable games with dubious practices. Some are seen as outright scams, whilst others are predatory loot box messes. I'm somewhat of a loot box expert myself. But imagine a title which not only promises to be fun, but one where you can actually earn real life money by just playing their game. In today's video, I want to explore one of the longest running and questionable MMOs ever created. Dating back to original WoW times, this MMO is still alive and kicking, and most importantly, making a fat stack of cash at the same time. So what is this mystery game, you ask? I am of course talking about the ever so notorious Entropia Universe. So if you enjoy questionable MMOs that you've never heard of before, then maybe you'll also enjoy my questionable and unheard of YouTube channel, where I go out my way to play dead and unpopular titles, which I then do video essays for, which nobody watches. Like and subscribe? But what makes a 20-year-old MMO controversial, you might be wondering? On paper, it's a free-to-play sandbox MMORPG based in space with a player-driven economy. And did I mention that's a real cash economy? And the way they do this is that everything in-game has a monetary value.
Oh, that's nice. My mom gave me that.
The in-game currency is referred to as PED or PED, which can be exchanged for US dollars at a currency conversion of 10 to 1. And as you can imagine, if you can take money out the game, you sure as hell can put it back in. And therefore I give you the ultimate pay-to-win title. But wait, there's more. Because everything does have a monetary value, it does mean that rare drops almost become a jackpot win.
Emotional. Very emotional.
So if a boss drops rare loot, it could be worth a couple of $100s. But at the same time, in order to kill the boss, you may need some expensive gear to do so. And this is what makes it so controversial, because players have been known to drop thousands of dollars to gear themselves up, just so they can go and chase these big jackpot wins. Which, from a lot of people's perspectives, is seen as a form of gambling. But what does MindArk, the developers behind this title, think of those claims?
That you then saying that there is a gambling element in Entropia?
No. What we have done, we have followed all of the rules and regulations to show, which we have done, that it is a skill-based game.
And that right there was the ex-CEO of MindArk, David Simmons, who quit last year. So is Entropia Universe just a online casino using a MMO as a front, or is there potentially a underrated MMO here waiting for people to pick it up and play? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. Wish me luck. So where might one go to download Entropia Universe, you might be wondering? Well, where else other than the dark web? A joke, you just go to their website. Entropia Universe uses a standalone launcher, which of course means we can't check to see how popular it is on the Steam charts. I know, I'm very upset by this. I did ask their AI chatbot how many people play Entropia Universe.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information. Is there anything else you'd like to know about Entropia Universe?
But the results were inconclusive. MMO Stats did have it down as about 800 players a day, with a grand total of 100,000 players, which I do feel is pretty reasonable. I mean, how else are they going to make all that profit? Once the installer had finished, I had to go away and create an account, and once I'd done that, I was able to log into the game and finally create my character. I have to say, I was actually pleasantly surprised as to how detailed the character creator was. There were some hairstyles which were locked out, and I assumed that they were available in the cash shop, but to my surprise, you have to unlock them in game. Obviously, you have to use the in-game currency to unlock them, which is technically real-life money, so technically, it is kind of a cash shop. This is going to get confusing. Despite the limited hair choices, I persevered on. And I thought it was only appropriate I make a character that looked like he knew his way around a casino. And I give you Plobby. He's just your average looking crypto bro who wants to sit there and talk to you about his investments. I'm sure a lot of you thought I was going in a completely different direction to that. One button click later, and I was transported into the world of Entropia. This game has once again surprised me because, looking at this, I wouldn't have thought it was 20 years old. I was actually taken back at how nice the graphics look. But let's not jump the gun, because as the old saying goes, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. First up was a NPC who greeted me by my full name, Plobby Plobberton. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to naming stuff, I'm not the best at it. But I digress. What you're witnessing here is me going through the start of the tutorial. Sadly, there was no voice acting, so I had to read everything that was presented to me. The NPCs went on to explain how I crash landed on the planet, they found me, and they basically got me back up to health. And now they're trying to help me get back on my feet, and to do so, they thought it would be best if they gave me a gun. Apparently, I had crash landed in America. What followed next was a quick lesson on the game's combat, which was a bit odd because you could tab target, but you could also freely aim. I was then informed that the targets I killed drop shrapnel, which can then be converted into ammo. Something that I never considered was that every time I shot something, that was actually costing me money. I was then told to head down the road to the next quest giver, where I encountered some dinosaurs. So of course, when faced with new life on a strange planet, I decided to shoot the fuckers. I'm not going to lie, this wasn't the most riveting combat.
It is a skill-based game.
It was slightly skill-based in the sense of I had to point and click at the dinosaur, but later on I found out I could just literally tab target, which would then lock onto the enemy and auto-attack. I killed a few more dinosaurs whilst also trying to relive the glory days of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and there's one thought that just wouldn't escape me, and that was the fact that every dinosaur I killed was technically a cash prize. Bear in mind, I hadn't spent any money on this game, so technically every dinosaur was profit. Not a lot of profit by any means, it was like 0.003 cents, but it was still profit. The tutorial then took me to an NPC called Rusty, who freely gave me a vehicle. No strings attached, just here you go, have a car. Does anyone else get the Halo Warthog theme stuck in the head when they go to drive a car in a game, or is it just me? Ah, finally, some freedom to explore. And in that exploration, I found out you can't run over mobs, you just go straight through them. Kind of disappointing. I made my way over to the objective, and then probably had one of the most brain dead moments in my life, which was I couldn't get out of the car. I then sat there for the next 5 minutes pushing literally every button on my keyboard, and I was still stuck in this fucking car. I think this is part of the problem with this game, which is the tutorial, as much as it's there, it is so wordy and lengthy that you kind of just skip past it.
One eternity later.
Whilst I sat there still trying to figure out the controls, something unexpected happened.
Hello there.
Another player suddenly appeared. So I did the one thing I know I'm good at. I begged them for help. But I had to be quick because they were starting to walk away.
I'm in my mum's car. Broom, broom.
I wasn't sure what the range was for local chat, so in a panic, I decided to follow them in my car. Remember kids, this is a video game. If someone ignores you in real life, don't stalk them in your car. Don't ride alongside them, and don't flash your lights at them. It can be seen as quite threatening and menacing. However, in this situation, it worked as they gave me the answer I was looking for, and I was actually able to get out of my car. Thank you for your help. With this newfound wisdom, I was finally able to complete my quest. I was now on the last mission, which would take me out of the tutorial zone and into the big wide world, where surely I'll be able to make some mega bucks. And admittedly, I was excited by the prospect. So with a skip in my step, I made my way over to Lieutenant Smith, who offered to take me to the mainland, which I gladly accepted. So there I was, on planet Calypso, the main planet of Entropia Universe. In official documentation, it had been stated that planet Calypso's economy was worth $400 million. And I was interested to see how exactly was this possible. When playing a MMO for the first time, I tend to stick to the main story questline until I get bored, and then I just go on an adventure. But lately there is one extra step I've been adding, which is seeing if you can swim at the first possible opportunity. And what a shocking surprise, a MMO from 20 years ago allows you to swim. Once again, proof as to how bad New World actually is. The starting area had a few quests to select from. They had your basic kill quest, fetch quest, and some random quests which were reinforcing what you was already shown within the basic tutorial. All the while, at the top of my HUD, I was getting hammered with notifications of other players earning significant amounts of PED. Which, by the way, I couldn't find an option to turn these notifications off. They were just constantly there. And I have to admit, I think the subliminal messaging eventually worked.
Fuck it. I'll do it myself.
So for all the wrong reasons, I abandoned the starting area questing and I went off into the big open world to find an adventure, and mainly money. Which, as you can imagine, was probably not going to end too well. The fuck was that? Fuck. Alright, that's fine. This is fine. Go, get away from me! Get away from me! Fuck off, you stupid chicken! Go the fuck away. Leave me alone. Can I get down here? Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. Just keep swimming. Come on, just keep swimming. Fuck off, Mr. Chicken. Just keep swimming. Come on, you got this. Fuck. I'm fucked. I'm okay. I'm okay. So as it turns out, the only thing more pathetic than me were these chicken creature things. But at least we finally know the answer to the question, if a synchronized swimmer drowns, do they all drown? A few lessons were learnt here. Number one, it seems like there is lag on the server, and that might be because there's only one server to choose from, and it's in the Netherlands. Lesson number two is that each area seems to be level locked, so by going to the bigger, badder zone, I was just going to inevitably get killed. So I'd have to be careful as to how I approach enemies. And lesson number three, my car can take damage, which is probably something I should keep an eye on, because I'm sure this will end well. Anyway, Journey of Discovery Part 2 was now underway. It had been over an hour, and so far I had made 0 friends, 0 money, and almost blew up my car. I had run into other players in the starting area, but none of them seemed too chatty. So I figured if I head far enough out, maybe I'll run into like a social player hub and they could help me get set up and start making some mega bucks. Well, that was the plan anyway, but the first settlement I came across appeared to be some sort of ghost town. One of the biggest sources of income for Entropia Universe is their housing system. They had made millions over the years by selling virtual real estate, as they call it. In 2005, a player mortgaged his home to purchase a virtual property in Entropia Universe for $100,000. He later sold that same property, called Club Never Die, for roughly $635,000. So it's an odd feeling driving around this town knowing that some of these houses might actually be worth as much as a real life house. But as I said, it was a ghost town, so I didn't stay for long and I went to the next village over in hope of finding some civilization. I always find it strange that you could be in the middle of nowhere on an MMO and yet you'll still randomly encounter another player. As I got closer, I knew I had a choice to make. I could drive past and leave this person to potentially die, or I could jump out my car and try and give them a hand. And being the hero that I am, I went for option B. And of course, with the enemy being under half health, I figured maybe if I got some little love taps on it, I could earn some much needed PED.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
So yeah, I died, and the other guy just went on his merry way and didn't think twice about what just happened. So that felt good. But it's okay, I didn't really lose anything by dying. You just lose durability on your items, which obviously cost money to repair. But I could deal with that. With my ego just about still intact, I decided to head out again and see if I can find that same player and maybe see if they could help me farm these animals. I figured it would be a good, easy way to level up and maybe learn a bit more about the game. Now, just a splash of information I need to tell you guys, this game has a auto run toggle which you can also use whilst driving a vehicle. And it just so happened I had this feature switched on, and I might have got slightly distracted whilst going through the complexity of the skill tree, which may or may not have been the reason as to why I crashed my car. It wasn't till I respawned that the severity of the situation really kicked in. So what you have to understand about the situation I'd gotten myself into is that I'd driven into a high level area, and with my car suddenly exploding and me having no money to repair it or any tools to repair it, I was pretty much stranded. Now obviously I have a gun, a map and 2 legs, so I could always just walk back, right? A reasonable expectation, but unfortunately this game is a bit more hardcore than that.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Now sadly I was surrounded by enemies. The nearest settlement over was quite far away, and every time I died I'd respawn at the nearest outpost, which happened to be this place, which was in the middle of buttfuck nowhere and had no way for me to fast travel. This meant I had to do the scariest thing that you could possibly do in a MMO, and that was of course speak to another player. Obviously it's not that deep, it wasn't a problem to speak up in area chat. I love being social in these sort of MMOs because you learn a lot about the game by doing so. It didn't actually take long for someone to private message me and offer some advice and guidance. And before I knew it, No had offered to come pick me up and take me away from this hellhole. And just by their outfit, I could tell they'd played this game a lot more than me.
Look at this distinguished gentleman.
What happened next was a series of unexpected acts of kindness. First, they gifted me a ship and a bunch of fuel. Bear in mind, everything in this game has a real money value, and this was worth 10 PEDs, which is about $1, but I mean, come on, when was the last time a random stranger came up to you and gave you $1? I bet it wasn't recent. They then decided to help me out by taking me on a quick tour of the area and show me some places I probably should go visit before I do anything else. This included taking me to a spot where I can get my car repaired, which best of all was done for free. And most importantly, they gave me a lesson on how to use a teleporter, which would come in handy later on. Up next we went to Port Atlantis, where I was advised that a lot of people take their vehicles here to get free repairs. And you might be wondering, why would anyone do anything for free in this game? And it's simply because it's rewarding to do so. When they do these repairs, they will level up their repair skill. At Port Atlantis we visited the mall, as you Americans say, which consists of player-owned shops, which are not cheap to own, by the way. Me and No then went and done a gauntlet, which is like a daily dungeon I believe, which promised a decent reward. Well, for me anyway. I think it's safe to say that if I was on my own, I'd have no chance in hell of completing this. But No here took the time to show me the ropes and even provided me with some support by healing me, because I was too stupid to heal myself. We took on the last boss, and would you believe it, we killed it. Go team.
Yes! Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes!
It's not every day that you have an absolute legend like No come along and teach you the game for no other reason than just to be helpful. The fact that they show me some quest givers as well that would be useful for me for leveling up, and they gave me free items, was just, yeah, it was beyond generous. So a big shout out to No, because honestly, without their help, I'm not too sure how far into this game I would have got. But anyway, it was time to part ways, and I still had a lot more Entropia to explore. The joys of playing a sandbox game is that you can play however you want. So for the most part, I was travelling around, doing quests, and just every now and then doing a little grinding. just to see if I could farm some material or get a lucky drop. With the game being over 20 years old, it's safe to say there's a lot to see and do, and there's no way I could cover it off in my short amount of playtime compared to the lifespan of the actual game. However, what sort of reviewer would I be if I didn't create a pros and cons list? I'm actually going to change it around and start off with the negatives. Now, one thing I soon realised is that a lot of the quests that I was doing, they were pretty useless. Like, they would level me up in a particular skill which I have no interest in, but I wouldn't get any decent rewards from them. And this happened quite a few times to my frustration. Which is a shame because although there is no voice acting, the dialogue around the quests themselves wasn't that bad. In fact, there was a bit of quirkiness to some of the quests. For instance, the one I was doing now, called Pub Crawl, had me go bar to bar in different cities trying to get a beer. But the catch was all the bars had run out of beer. So eventually I'd gone to all of them asking for a beer, travelling around the map, and then I got home and it was like, yeah, we don't have beer. Sorry for wasting your time. Here, let's level up a skill slightly. I mean, maybe it's just because it's early game and they don't want to give you the money, or maybe it's because they're not stupid and they're not going to give you money for questing. I honestly don't know what the answer is. I'd like a vet player to tell me if it's just my imagination or whether it is designed this way. Next on the list is the combat. It felt very shallow and like there could have been more to it. With the game being as old as it is, the developers obviously opted for tab targeting, but it's quite literally a case of you tab onto the target and you right click on your mouse and it pretty much does all the work for you. Dodges are automatic and are based off your stats, and to be honest, when it comes to actually repositioning your player, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. I think the worst thing for me is that you do have the ability to use free look and shoot enemies, but by doing so you're making combat harder for yourself. Also, when switching weapons or switching to one of the healing orb things I have, it was really slow and unresponsive. Obviously, I can't comment on the end game combat, but from a new player experience, it felt really slow and clunky, and to be perfectly blunt, like you only had one ability to spam. Something else that really annoyed me about this game is just how slow it is to go and explore the world. The amount of times my car, buggy, whatever you want to call it, would get stuck going up a hill, it felt worse than Skyrim. Oh hi, Sawman here, and I'm 1,000 feet up in the air on my horse in Skyrim. But not only that, the fact that I had a spaceship, and even then, it was so slow to get from point A to B, it really did feel more of a chore to go travelling as opposed to an actual adventure. I have played some complex MMOs in the past and they've had better tutorials than this. This game really does throw you in the deep end, and if you enjoy googling everything and anything because you can't figure stuff out, then this certainly is the game for you. And the server lag, I honestly don't know where it comes from. I have good internet, I have a good PC, and I usually am able to play on North American servers. But the amount of stutters and rubber banding I had honestly makes me question where in the world this server even is based. Now, there is a lot of stuff missing off this list, but in terms of first impressions and amount of game time I had, these are the standout issues I had with the game itself as a MMO. In regards to the monetization, shall we call it, I'm going to have a separate section for that because there's a deep rabbit hole that we need to dive into. But before we do that, there are some pros I want to talk about. Despite its age, there is a lot of innovation in a roundabout way. One thing I really loved to see were how other players had customized their characters. Their outfits were certainly outfits to be seen, but what I actually liked about this was that in a roundabout way, these outfits were all earned by playing the game. They're all in-game rewards. People will look at your outfit and they'll know how much hard work and effort you put in to look the way that you do. None of this bullshit you just bought it off the cash shop. Oh no, you went and you farmed your heart out to look like whatever this thing is. Either way, it gives me a real Second Life vibe. It adds to the social aspects of this game. The depth and width of the skill system was also very impressive. They were done in such a way that you couldn't level up everything. You had certain ones that you'd focus on, and in a way it pushed you towards a certain profession. I thought the graphics were really good too. I know they have been upgraded over the year and they're now sat on CryEngine, I believe, and there's even talks of pushing it to UE5. Whether that actually comes to fruition or not is a different story, but yeah, I was impressed. 20 years old, and let's be honest, it looks a lot better than RuneScape. And one of the best features about the game is the social aspect. What I'm talking about is just how willing some players were to help you out, talk to you, and just generally give advice when, do you know what, they didn't have to. I thought there'd be a real icy vibe from the community, given the fact that you're all trying to earn money essentially. But no, everyone seems very friendly, which was a surprise, but a pleasant one at that. And I know I talked about how pricey player housing was, but if we took the price tag away and the fact that they had this system 20 plus years ago, where you could decorate your own house and fill it with in-game rewards, it is very innovative and it's a good system to have. And my last positive is just how batshit crazy the game is. Like the world records that it's held, the community who have played it since day one. And I hadn't even touched upon the fact that there are different planets that you can visit, with one of them being themed around rock and roll. Honestly, whatever they're smoking over there at Mindark, send it my way. So yeah, overall, as an MMO, it has some very redeemable qualities about itself. It's by no means an unplayable, horrible mess, and the fact that the community is still there and somewhat thriving just goes to show there is an enjoyable game to be played. But look, there's no point tiptoeing around it anymore, so let's just address the elephant in the room. Or the several elephants in the room. I mean, it might as well be a whole fucking zoo in this room. So there is a lot of things in Entropia that I consider very questionable and somewhat shady, if not a grey area. For starters, let's start with something light. In the UI, there is a pop-up at the top which will tell you when players earn PED. The pop-up in itself isn't offensive, it's the fact that you can't turn this off. It is constantly there telling you when players are winning big. Now obviously this is a psychological tactic to get you to also want to win big and potentially have to deposit money in order to do so. I just want to point out other MMOs do have a similar practice where if they win big in a loot crate, it will pop up as a notification for everyone to see. But you can turn these off for the most part. So that's the first bit of shade. The second bit of shade is the fact that when you go to withdraw your money, there's a slight caveat involved. For starters, there's a handling fee, which means you won't get the full amount that you're trying to withdraw. Secondly, you might get charged a bank fee because it is an international bank. They are sending it from Sweden, I do believe. And thirdly, it can take up to 50 days. Oh, and I forgot one more. You have to withdraw a minimum of $100. Why? Like, what? Why is this legal? And I think one of the biggest bits of shadiness about this whole title is the fact that they never even label it as gambling.
We have followed all of the rules and regulations to show, which we have done, that it is a skill-based game.
And you might think, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, when it is considered gambling, there's also a lot of rules and regulations you have to follow. For instance, in the UK, you have to be 18 to gamble. And yet, for almost 20 years, Entropia Universe, they didn't really care about your age. And that's because it's not gambling, remember?
We've changed the minimum age of Entropia Universe now. It's 18 years old.
How long was Entropia operating with the minimum age of players not being 18?
We changed that last year.
Wow. Oh, so
but
2003 to 2019.
You also need to have a gambling license in the UK if you're to host any sort of gambling. And this is to make sure the games are fair and crime-free. In the UK, gambling businesses will need to provide customers with options to opt out so they don't get spammed with products. You know, maybe like a pop-up box which constantly goes on your screen to tell you that someone won PED. And there's also regulations about vulnerable players. For instance, allowing a player to lose over £70,000 in 10 hours is something that shouldn't happen. There should be blockers and locks to stop players going over a certain threshold. So the real shadiness for me is the fact that they want to avoid saying that the game is actually some form of gambling. And I can only assume the reason they don't want to call it gambling is because they don't want to lose a chunk of vulnerable players who are potentially putting way too much money in that they can't afford. Well, that's what it looks like from the outside in. Maybe they have a better reason. Despite all the shadiness though, I do actually have a controversial take about this game, which I'm sure no one will expect, but here it goes. I don't think it's as predatory as some other mainstream MMOs. Now hear me out. In theory, you can play this game for free, earn in-game money without ever purchasing anything, which you can then re-roll to buy in-game rewards. Whereas modern MMOs such as The Elder Scrolls Online, Black Desert Online, or even World of Warcraft, you have to actually part money to get additional items in-game. I know I pointed out that housing in this title is very expensive. I mean, hell, they have a few world records, but guess what? In The Elder Scrolls Online, they have several houses you can only earn from buying them from the in-game cash shop. And would you believe it, they don't go cheap. It's the same with mounts and outfits, and obviously they have loot crates. Even games as old as Neverwinter and Star Trek Online have loot crates. So yes, I would say that Entropia Universe is more of an online casino gambling title, but at the same time, you could say that about a lot of MMOs out there on the market. All of them tend to have some sort of gambling involved, and it all costs money. I think there's a difference between risk versus reward and gambling, mainly whether you have to use your wallet or not. So I'm not against elements of gambling being in games, I'm just against having to use my credit card in order to win. I think as we evolve as a player base, we look for more innovation when it comes to gaming, be it the way we play or the things that we can earn in game. I don't necessarily think Entropia Universe is too controversial compared to some of the other MMOs out there, but I do think it was ahead of the curve when it comes to digital currency. Technically, most MMOs you could sell gold to other people for real life money. You can even sell accounts. It's just that Entropia Universe has more official methods as to how to do it, and they take a cut of the price. I think as well, with the rise of NFTs and crypto, there's going to be a lot worse MMOs out there than Entropia Universe when it comes to trying to take your money. I think if Entropia Universe came out and said, yes, the game involves gambling, and then proceeded to follow the rules and regulations set out by each country, then no one would actually care. However, when you skirt just on the line, trying to use loopholes and avoid using specific labels just so you can avoid being regulated and maybe having to pay an extra fee, then I think you invite controversy and open yourself up to criticism. So would I recommend that you play Entropia Universe? I mean, it has a great community, I like the concept, it's very customizable, but you have to understand when playing this game, its sole purpose is to get you to spend money. And if you're not aware of that whilst playing, then you might get hoodwinked. And on that bombshell, I'm going to end the video there. If you want to see me play more MMOs like this, by all means comment and suggest some below. Entropia Universe was actually suggested to me from a member of my Discord, so shout out to How to Make Lettuce. They also have a YouTube channel which is dedicated to helping new players of Entropia, so check that out if you're interested. As always, thanks for watching, leave a like to help the algorithm, and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. I'll leave a couple of videos on the screen for you now which you might enjoy, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.